In the video, we explore the events of the Bolshevik Revolution in October 1917, its consequences, and the start of the Bolshevik dictatorship. After the July days of 1917, several ministers from the Constitutional Democratic Party resigned, weakening the coalition and triggering the crisis of the Second Coalition Government. On the 1st of September 1917, former Prime Minister Alexander Kerensky formed the Directorate to resolve the crisis caused by the Kornilov affair and the collapse of the previous government. Among the public opinion sympathetic to democracy, the Directorate was associated with the French Directory established in 1795, which raised suspicions that Kerensky aimed to become a new Bonaparte. On the same day, Kerensky issued the decree declaring the Russian Republic. However, it was a unilateral act, as no elected institution approved it. On the 12th of September, the All-Russian Democratic Conference was convened, during which it was decided to establish the Provisional Council, also known as the Pre-Parliament, which served as a legislative body to which the Provisional Government was to report on its actions until a parliament, called the Constituent Assembly, was convened. The Bolsheviks' attitude towards the Provisional Council divided them into two factions. The faction led by Lev Kamenev looked for opportunities within the Provisional Council to foster a peaceful development of the revolution. The faction led by Leon Trotsky believed that the Bolsheviks' participation in the Provisional Council signified support for the Provisional Government, which conflicted with the Bolsheviks' principle of opposing the Provisional Government. On the 5th of October, Kerensky ordered units of the Petrograd garrison, which the Kerensky government considered politically unreliable, to prepare for immediate deployment to the front. This order led to military disobedience, during which most garrison units refused to follow orders and openly expressed their loyalty to the Petrograd Council of Workers' and Soldiers' Deputies. On the 9th of October, the Directorate was replaced by the Third Coalition Government, headed by Kerensky, with a majority of members of the Socialist Revolutionary Party and the Constitutional Democratic Party. On the 10th of October 1917, Lenin secretly returned to Petrograd from Finland, where he had been hiding after the July days, and called for an armed seizure of power. On the 20th of October, the Petrograd Military Revolutionary Committee was established to assert its authority within the garrison, beginning to send its commissars. By the 21st of October, the Military Revolutionary Committee informed the commander of the Petrograd Military District that it had effectively taken control of the garrison. In effect, this marked the start of the Bolshevik uprising. On the 24th of October, the Provisional Government, trying to prevent a revolution, closed Bolshevik newspapers and blockaded the center of Petrograd, razing the bridges over the Neva River. However, the balance of power favored the Petrograd Council, which had about 30,000 armed rebels, while the Provisional Government supported no more than 2,000 loyal troops. On the 25th of October, the Bolshevik Red Guard, under the leadership of the Military Revolutionary Committee, began to occupy government buildings. At night on the 26th of October, the Red Guard, supported by soldiers and sailors, seized the Winter Palace, where the Provisional Government had its headquarters. Fewer than 10 people died during the Red Guard invasions of the Winter Palace. The Provisional Government fell, and its ministers were arrested. Unlike in Petrograd, in Moscow, supporters of the Provisional Government resisted the Bolsheviks for about a week. Simultaneously with the overthrow of the Provisional Government, the Second All-Russian Congress of Councils of Workers and Soldiers Deputies was held at the Smolny Institute for Noble Maidens. On the very first day of the Congress, the Menshevik and Socialist revolutionary delegations condemned the Bolshevik October uprising as an illegal coup and left the Congress in protest. As a result, acting on Lenin's proposal, the Congress adopted the decree on the formation of the Council of People's Commissars, officially establishing the new government, the Council of People's Commissars, composed entirely of Bolsheviks. According to the decree, the Council of People's Commissars was formed before the convocation of the Constituent Assembly. It was accountable to the Congress of Councils and, between sessions, to its permanent body, the All-Russian Central Executive Committee. Trotsky became People's Commissar for Foreign Affairs, and Stalin was appointed People's Commissar for National Minorities. The Congress passed the decree on peace, urging all warring nations and their governments to cease hostilities immediately and to start negotiations for a fair, democratic peace without annexations or indemnities. At the same time, the death penalty was abolished in the army. Both measures significantly increased soldiers' support for the Bolsheviks. The decrees further undermined military discipline, leading to more desertions. The Congress also approved the decree on land, which included key provisions on the nationalization of land, including privately owned land, and on the confiscation of landowners' lands, transferring them to land committees and district councils of peasants' deputies. With this decree, the Bolsheviks demonstrated that they were a party of workers and peasants and intensified competition with the socialist revolutionaries, who were agrarian socialists and enjoyed broad peasant support. The boycott of the Congress by the socialist revolutionaries and Mensheviks effectively secured Bolshevik dominance, leading to the new government being composed exclusively of Bolsheviks. In USSR historiography, the Second Congress of Councils has traditionally been viewed as legitimizing the folk government. However, the country's peasant majority, making up about 85% of the population, was not represented at the Congress at all. The extraordinary All-Russia Congress of Councils of Peasants' Deputies took place only in mid-November 1917. However, the Bolsheviks' rise to power did not mean they had support from all of Russia and the ability to govern the country. Although the Second All-Russian Congress of Councils of Workers and Soldiers' Deputies confirmed the Bolsheviks' authority, the new regime faced immediate and widespread resistance. Many government officials went on strike, and the state bank refused to finance the Bolsheviks. After the Bolsheviks seized power in October, the Industry Union, the All-Russian Executive Committee of the Union of Railwaymen, also known by the Russian acronym Vikzhel, independently influenced and coordinated the railways and acted as an autonomous entity, recognizing no political authority and no interests other than those of railway workers. At the Second All-Russian Congress of Councils, a Vikzhel delegate voiced disapproval of any political party seizing power. It threatened to cut off supplies to Petrograd if the new Bolshevik government attempted repression. On the 27th of October 1917, the Council of People's Commissars issued the decree on press, aiming to take control over information. The decree granted the Bolshevik government emergency powers to close newspapers calling for resistance to the Bolsheviks. This decree destroyed freedom of speech, one of the revolution's key achievements. Sabotage by skilled officials within the bureaucracy and ministries under the authority of the Council of People's Commissars caused chaos in Russia's governance. In response, on the 7th of December 1917, the Council of People's Commissars established the first Soviet secret police organization, the All-Russian Extraordinary Commission, commonly known as the Cheka. Created ostensibly to protect the October Revolution from class enemies, the Cheka soon became an instrument of repression used against all political opponents of the Bolshevik regime. On the 25th of November, elections to the Russian Constituent Assembly were held. Over 60% of eligible Russian voters participated. The assembly was dominated by the anti-Bolshevik right socialist revolutionaries, with Viktor Chernov elected as its chairman. On the 18th of January 1918, at the first session, all decrees passed by the Second Congress of Soviets and submitted for approval were rejected. This made it clear that the Constituent Assembly opposed the Bolsheviks and had the legal right to seize power from them. As a result, the Bolsheviks disbanded the assembly the day after a 13-hour session. On the same day, a demonstration primarily consisting of middle-class students, civil servants, and intellectuals gathered in Petrograd to support the Constituent Assembly. The demonstration was opened fire upon and dispersed by soldiers loyal to the Bolshevik government. The creation of the secret police, the Cheka, the closure of the democratically elected Constituent Assembly, and the press law, which abolished freedom of speech, marked the end of the revolution and the beginning of the Bolshevik tyranny of the one-party state, where all opposition parties were banned. In the following video, we explore key events of the Russian Civil War.